Now, at this point, I generally have students who have learned quite a bit, but they tend to start getting a little sloppy with the modeling process. And so I want to talk about some better practices for accomplishing things. So for example, if I have my students working on something like a lamp, like this upright lamp, they'll take a look at it and start breaking it into pieces. And they will do something like grabbing a cylinder, making this really large for the base, and then they'll grab another cylinder and do this to bring it up, and they'll do a little bit of modeling with it, and get another cylinder, put that right up through the center. Yeah, maybe not quite that far. Move this up into position. And they'll do another cylinder here to create a lampshade, and then they can build out the interior pieces as well. Grab all of these bottom faces and those top faces, delete those, so we get a nice lampshade. Hopefully you can already start seeing some of the issues that are being presented here. And in some cases, it's also that they'll just be kind of lining things up, and I'll get stuff that's off to the side. Excuse me. So first off, you need to be building at the origin and at right angles as much as possible. So having these lined up directly for something like the lampshade would be important, because that can be put right over that central spot to be created. But there's a couple of things going wrong here. First, the geometry is way too high. In general, work much lower resolution, because you can always build up. You've seen how easy it is to drop in additional edge loops and to add more information later. But it's really hard to remove it if you're working at too high a resolution. Right now, these are way too high a resolution. They're at the default with 20 sides, and we don't really need that. We can work much lower and be just as efficient and still get nice looking objects, especially if you're being smart about it and working with hard and soft edges. Second, you're using a lot of different just primitives that are mashed into each other. And so for students who may be scared of the modeling process or may still be scared of the tools, this becomes their crutch. And so this is another reason why I'm encouraging you, please take the time to play. Don't worry about breaking stuff. Just have fun playing. The more you play and the more you become comfortable with tools, the better this is going to be and the easier it's going to become. So that's another issue. Another one is this lampshade. Things that appear to be paper thin are generally not, simply because they are one side. So if I turn on backface culling on this lamp, you'll see that it's not a thin lampshade, it's one part of a lampshade. And so that doesn't work for us. Once again, it's a primitive, it's got 20 sides, which is too high resolution for what we would need, and there's no interior. So this doesn't work. So a better approach would be to start with a cylinder, reduce the geometry to what you need to be able to make it work effectively. In general, most things can get away with 6 to 8 sides. There are cases where you may have it a little bit higher. Even most AAA games, if you see a barrel that looks nice and round, they usually cap their sides at about 12. And so you don't really need a lot to be able to accomplish quite a bit visually. So with that moved up, if I can get this in object mode, I'll scale this out, scale that down. And then I do want to make sure that I don't have these triangles, because once again, all these are coming to a point, and that creates an issue called tri-fanning that can be problematic later on. But I really want to make sure I'm working in quads so that I can keep things clean. So in order to do that, I'm going to remove all these edges, and then I'm going to use the multi-cut tool to build this up. By the way, I focused right there by hitting the F key. Nice little hotkey for you. And so now I've got this information that goes all the way through. All right, so from there, now I can use what I have to start developing this model. So I'm going to bring this to the side so I can look at it while I'm working. So this model itself actually has a fairly flat base. And I'll extrude, bring this in, and then up, still kind of swooping in. And I actually do need to spread it out just a little bit more to get this to work the way I want. And by the way, I'm growing and shrinking my selection by holding down Shift and using the alligator teeth. So the greater than, lesser than symbols, or the comma, the period key, to be able to grow or shrink that selection. So I've got that to about here. Going to extrude again, bring this up and in. Then it gets this second flare and bell shape right about here. Apologize, had to pause the video there for a second, but back to this. Getting this bell shape built up. And so once again, bringing this in. And then I can bring this up. And if I want to, I can take this all the way up and actually start doing some additional development. So I can create this flare that comes up at the top. I can then do another extrusion, bring this in, and then I can, if I want to, start putting in the light bulb itself. Scale that in, scale this up. And that would be still mostly in. Scale this up and out for the light bulb. Depending on what type of light bulb you have, I'll do a little bit of an old school light bulb. And then I'll grab these vertices, scale them out so that I can get a little bit of a nicer shape to that. Yeah, I'll keep that in just a little bit. Alright, so that's a very large light bulb for that stand, so I'll actually scale this whole thing in just a little bit, drop it down. And actually it does look like there's a little bit of a groove in there where it drops in. And once again, if I need to line that up exactly, I can use snap to point and get that all ready. Okay, from here, I may still want to come back and add in some more information. So I can do some of these edge loops. Right up here, I'll want to do a couple because there's some interesting bells and flares on it. I will do 3 here. I'll zoom in to get those. And I'll do 3 more down here. I'll grab this edge loop here in the center of those 3, this loop in the center of those 3. Whoop. Unless I misselect. So I'll grab that edge loop, hit the R key to scale out, and I'm going only in 2 directions so they don't squish towards or away from each other. When I grab these and bring them a little closer together, so that's a little bit tighter. So once again, double clicking, shift double clicking to get those edge loops. At the top right here, I'm going to grab these faces, expand those out a little bit. Grab that edge loop, bring it down. This edge loop, bring it down and out. And this edge loop I will bring in just slightly to create this shaping. And there we go. So I've got most of that, but you see I'm able to create it from a single piece of geometry. I can then worry on this piece of geometry about the hard and soft edges. So mesh display, soften edge. I'm also going to adjust that pivot. So D, hold down the X key to snap to point, or excuse me, snap to grid, the D key again. My apologies, had to pause for another call. So back to it here. So already I'm looking at this and wanting to make a couple of additional decisions. This is feeling like too large of a flare. So I can come in, grab these, expand, start shrinking this down a little bit. So that feels a little bit better. I may also want to expand this base just a little bit further than I currently have it. So to select an edge loop of faces, or an edge loop of faces, I will grab that one, shift, double click that one, and I can expand that out. Grabbing these bottom faces, snapping those up to the grid, making sure it's flat. So that's feeling a lot better. So back to the hard and soft edges. I just softened everything all at once, but there's some areas that I want to be hardened. So I want that inner loop to be hardened. I want that loop to be hardened, that one, that one, that one. I want this to be hardened and this to be hardened to emphasize some of the shaping. I want that one I'm going to leave smoothed. So this top one, so I'm holding down shift as I do each of these. This top one, or the bottom one. Here I want this to be smooth as it goes down, but I want that to be hardened. I want, actually that's the only one there. Here at the edges, I want it to be hardened. And because of the bottom, the way it's created, I also have to shift select some of these and then double left click that. And then I can go mesh display, harden edge. All right, now if I shift to object mode, you can see that that really helps to emphasize the forms using those hard and soft edges. The next step would be building up the interior of this. So from the picture, I can't really see the inside, but knowing lamps and having seen many, there's a few different ways that this can be accomplished. In some cases, it's actually a wire brace that kind of fits over the lamp and holds the shade. In this case, because there's that hinge on top, that's generally not the case. What it would be most likely is a wire coming up this side, a wire coming down this side, connecting to another post that goes up to the top. At the top, it would have a bolt that ball right here fits on top of, and on that bolt you would have a circular cover with 3 or 4 wires going out that connect into the top of that lampshade, which the lampshade comes down from. So building that up, and actually before I do, I'm going to pause this right here. So save scene as, well, before I do that, let me do my basic cleanup. So this will change, but for right now, just want to get that out of the way. Edit, delete all by type history, modify, freeze transforms file, save scene as. Oh, and just force of habit for naming convention. File, save scene as. And this will be lamp 1_1, and I will save that. I'm going to stop the video here, and when I come back, we'll work on the lampshade.